WTIM Morning Show. Your stream co-sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. I'm Avery Cooper here with Monte Tenclay. He's with Tenasca, and he's here to talk about energy-related projects, including Heartland Greenway. Welcome to the program, Monte.
Thanks, Avery. I appreciate you having us on this morning.
So what is Tenasca?
So Tenasca is an energy company based out of Omaha, Nebraska. We were started in the late 80s with a group of people who had worked in the natural gas business for, quite a number of years, and they decided to start their own business and build natural gas fueled power plants. We've built about 19 gas plants in that time. We've branched out into a number of other businesses that include natural gas and power service marketing. Our gas marketing group is one of the top marketing groups in the country, and our power services group has become one of the top groups in the country as well.
So what is Heartland Greenway?
So Heartland Greenway is really a multi-state project, about 5 different states, and it's really in 3 smaller projects that support it. The first part of it is carbon sequestration, where we capture the carbon from industrial processes, in this case mostly ethanol plant producers, and they actually generate pure carbon dioxide as part of their process. So we just capture the carbon dioxide, we transport it. It's about a 1,300-mile pipeline that covers goes from South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, and then into Illinois. And then we store the carbon dioxide, and right now our proposed project site is here in Christian County.
What is the CCS, and how does that work?
So CCS is
it's carbon sequestration.
Yeah,
what does that stand for?
The proper name is carbon capture and sequestration. We use storage most of the time instead of sequestration because it makes more sense to people.
Yeah, let's back up a little bit. What is sequestration versus storage?
They're the same thing.
Okay.
It's a synonym.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
So storage makes a lot more sense to people. So we say carbon capture and storage.
I see. It's a messaging thing more so than it is.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
It makes a little bit more sense. It makes more sense for me when I hear storage. I know what that is.
Well, and if you think about it, we're going to store this stuff about 5,200 feet below the surface of the earth. And it really is almost a storage. We're using the earth as a storage container for this carbon dioxide. And if you think about carbon dioxide, this is the same carbon dioxide that's in your Coke or a Sprite that you might have bubbling up in your nose as you're trying to drink it. So
What is your company's role in this project?
So Tenasca's role in the project is to develop the carbon storage site. We worked on a project here about 10 years ago in Taylorville. That project required some changes in Springfield that didn't come through, and so we unfortunately had to cancel that project. This project doesn't really need any changes in laws or anything to make it go forward. We just need to work with landowners to acquire the storage site and build the pipeline to get it down here.
Mr. Tenclay, you have a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and Master of Science in Civil Environmental Engineering. I think it's safe to say you're an expert in this kind of stuff. What do you feel are some of the benefits of being able to do this project?
I don't know that I would sell myself as an expert in this stuff.
Well, fair enough.
But we've spent a fair amount of time looking at it, and quite frankly, we've got the experts at our disposal.
Well, what do they say then?
Yeah, if you look at this from the perspective of what does this do for the local economy, or will this do for local people, probably the biggest one is that it gives the ethanol and the fertilizer plants an opportunity to store their carbon somewhere rather than releasing it into the air. But there's other benefits to the community as well. There will be benefits in the form of taxes. There will be benefits in annual payments that we'll make to landowners for use of the space, 5,200 feet below the surface. There's opportunities for jobs, a lot of other things that will happen as a result of this project coming online.
And so what is the big picture here? You have carbon stored, right, at 5,200 feet. What is this? I guess, what is your end all be all? This is the reason why this is a necessary project to have in the area.
That's a great question. And I think, if you, as you look at that, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. All right. If you're a climate change person, then, climate change people believe that we need to remove the carbon dioxide from the air and find another place to put it. One of the things that they are pushing for is, for us not to be using fossil fuels. This is a way to allow, if you're not a climate change person, then you have to look at the way things are going in the U.S. and the way things are going around the world. And people are pushing for us to reduce our carbon footprint. This project provides an opportunity for businesses like the ethanol plants and fertilizers and other types of businesses to store their carbon in a way that reduces their carbon footprint. There are places in the country where their ethanol then becomes more valuable, which helps the farmers. There's been an estimate that this could have a significant increase in the amount of ethanol that gets used across the country. We're still working on that information. But really the big picture is just providing opportunities for these plants to reduce their carbon footprint.
All right. Well, I think that's safe to say that everybody would be interested in doing that. And you mentioned that, I guess I'm just trying to make neuron connections here, right? You have carbon sequestered underneath, and then you also have potential for ethanol and whatnot to become more valuable with that. How does that correlate? I know you said the studies are still kind of out there, but
so the reality is that almost 30% of the corn and beans grown in the Midwest go for ethanol. So if the ethanol producers are able to get a better price for their corn or for their ethanol, then likely the prices for corn and beans could go up. But more importantly, it makes those it makes the ethanol more viable into the future as we push for lower carbon footprints across the United States.
How big is this storage space?
The storage space itself, the project footprint changes based on the work that's going right now, but it's between 35,000 and 40,000 acres. And we measure it as surface acres, but really the pore space that we're looking for is, as we've said, quite a ways, thousands of feet below the surface of the earth. The way that this is set up, we will acquire the pore space rights, and then we'll pay the landowner an annual payment for use of that pore space. But for the farmers and for the people who live on the surface, there's really no impact to what they're doing. It's still their land. The surface of the earth belongs to them. They can continue to farm it as they've been farming it for, a couple hundred years. They can change the use of it however they'd like to. It's still their land to use as they see fit.
In other words, you would be contracting with landowners to...
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have a location as of right now?
We do. You mean a location for the site or
for the site? Yes.
Yeah, we do. The project site is really between 29 and 48 north of Taylorville, kind of right in the center.
Okay. All right. And how are you reaching out to the community other than being here today?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways that we're reaching out to the community. We have an office at 913 Spresser Street.
Okay.
That we opened in last fall in September. We have land agents that are reaching out to landowners to talk with them about the agreements. We have articles in the newspaper that go on Sunday and Wednesday. The articles in the newspaper are really focused on answering questions. We want to make sure that we use the best, most efficient use of people's time. We take opportunity to read what we were putting out. So we're really just putting out some information on the project. And then obviously this radio interview, and we have more radio ads that are going on with our questions, with your questions answered.
You're listening to the WTIM Morning Show on WTIM, your information station. Your stream co-sponsored by Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark, and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. More with Tenasca's Director of Project Development, Monte 10 Clay, in a moment right here on WTIM, your information station. Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper here with Tenasca's Director of Project Development, Monte 10 Clay. Monty, welcome into the program. Great to have you here. And you're here with Tenasca to talk about Heartland Greenway, which is a carbon storage project. Maybe give a little bit of a update for those just joining the program, or maybe a kind of a summary of what we talked about in that first part.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, we started out talking about a little bit about what is Heartland Greenway.
Mm-hmm.
Heartland Greenway is a 5-state project that starts with carbon capture and then transports the carbon down to Illinois via about a 1,300-mile pipeline into Christian County, and then it'll store the carbon dioxide about 5,200 feet below the surface of the earth. There's a natural geologic formation in in Illinois that starts almost at the border of Iowa and Illinois. The formation goes all the way into Iowa, but it is really only conducive for storing carbon in Illinois, kind of going west and north. There's two really important rock formations down there. The biggest one is the Eau Claire Formation, which creates a really a barrier, and it's about 200 feet thick at about 5,000 feet. And once the carbon dioxide gets injected below that formation, and we seal up the well, it doesn't have a way to get back up to the surface of the earth. So the Mount Simon sandstone is below that. It's a porous formation with brine water, salty water that this gets injected into. It initially will dissolve into the water, and then it'll ultimately mineralize into the sandstone.
How many? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Continue.
that's all right. So we also talked a little bit about Tenaska's role. Tenaska's role is to develop the carbon storage site. And in doing that, we're working with landowners in acquiring the pore space below the Eau Claire Formation, so we can reach down there and store it. We'll also be working with landowners on acquiring small well site locations, about a half an acre in size. There'll be about 5 of those, and there'll be about between 5 and 6 of the injection wells. And then there will also be between 10 and 12 monitoring wells that will be put out there to monitor the injection, so we know where it's at, and that we can maintain it, and then also know if there's any issues so that we can correct them. Tenaska's, as you know, has been here before. We had a project that we worked on that wasn't successful. It required some outside support from Illinois legislators that we didn't get. And so unfortunately we had to cancel that one, but we're really excited to be back here. We started reaching out to landowners. We're talking with community officials. We're talking with landowners, and we're going to have a robust communication program that's really focused just on educating people on what we're doing, why it's safe to do that, and how this can benefit the community.
How many landowners are involved?
There's a couple of hundred, somewhere between 300 and 400 landowners total that we'll be talking with.
And so you've been contacting them, I'm sure. What permits do you need?
Probably the biggest permit is the Class 6 permit that's required from the EPA, that's required to be able to inject the carbon dioxide into the ground. There's other local and state and then federal permits that will be required to work on as well. And as we get through this year and work on mostly on land acquisition and acquiring the rights that we need, then we'll start focusing on the permitting.
Sounds like the status of this project is just kind of preliminary, right? Where are you at?
I don't know that I would call it preliminary.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of preliminary work that went into getting to this point. But at this point, we're at the beginning of development. We're working with landowners. That's probably the biggest part of the project, or most important part of the project right now. Working with the local community, understanding what permits and zoning requirements that are going to need to be met within the community. And that'll go on for about the next year. And then going into next year, we'll go into a really heavy design and permitting phase. And then hopefully we'll get this project up and running towards the end of 2024 or early 2025.
That's when the operations phase would begin.
That's correct.
All right. Any quick thoughts before you go?
The only thing I want to say is, we know there's a lot of projects out there. We're going to work hard at distinguishing ourselves by being active in the community early, and reaching out to not only the people that are that we need to work with for the project footprint, but also the people in the community where there are needs. So expect to see us out and about.
All right. Thank you, Monty. Listen to the WTIM Morning Show.